Hello, my name is Jennifer May, and I'm going to share my screen. Give me one moment here. Okay, all right. Before I go into a little bit more of who I am, I always like to start with this quote from Theodore Roosevelt, because I think it is so important for any sort of training to know that I care. Um, and it's important for our clients to know that as well. So people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it's really hard to listen to others and gain knowledge from them when we don't even know if they care about us and where their heart is in this. And I just want to let you know that I'm here to support you all so that you can feel confident and equipped to be able to share the alternative parenting option of adoption. Um, so let's get into it. Again, my name is Jennifer May. I do need to update this because I am an LSW now, so licensed social worker. I'm also an adoption assessor, and I am a birth mama. So the purpose of this training today is, again, just to help equip you, kind of learn a little bit of the background knowledge of why it might be hard, what our clients might be going through when they come into the pregnancy center, and kind of some tips of how to work with these clients and meet them where they are. So here's some of the topics we're going to go over. I won't go in depth into that. We'll get right into this so that this training isn't a long one. I do have a longer training that I have sent along with this one too. So you can decide, does our staff need a more in-depth training or this shorter training to kind of just give a little introduction and not overwhelm with information. So why is adoption difficult to talk about in the context of a pregnancy center? So there's a lot of cultural biases that our clients have when they come in. I'm sure you've heard, oh, I could never place my child for adoption if you do share that option. And so some of that could be based on personal experience and some of that could be based on cultural bias. So it's hard to talk about that when we don't have enough knowledge to counteract that cultural bias. So I've seen a lot of times where pregnancy centers just pivot from the adoption talk when a little bit of pushback is given from clients. So this training is going to kind of help introduce you to some ways to lovingly share correct information. All right, some cultural biases that exist out there. I won't go into all of them, but a major one is birth mom and bad mom are synonyms, which is absolutely not true. In the context of private adoption, so this is adoption that women are choosing for their children, I've seen time and time again that it is an innate parental drive to love and protect their children that brings them to the choice of adoption. So it's not a matter of, I want to get rid of my child. I don't like this kid, get it away from me. It's a matter of, I love this child so much. I want to safeguard my child and make sure that they have what I believe they deserve that I don't think I can provide. We won't get into the rest of that. You will have a link to the slides as well. So if you wanted to go over these slides with your staff or volunteers, you certainly have access to that. So some other biases that are pretty common that you probably hear a lot, or maybe you don't know that that's exactly what you're hearing, but a lot of women think that adoption and foster care are the exact same thing, and they're not. So private infant adoption is where a biological mom, or if dad's involved, him as well, they get to choose the family. They get to meet the families and interview them to make sure that they feel peace with that family. And then they get to build that relationship with that family. And then that relationship can continue on if both parties decide that they want to do that. So that's totally and completely different. Open adoption is unhealthy and confusing for the adoptee. No, it isn't. When it's done ethically and done well, it's like, here's my thing. We can understand as a culture how parents can love more than one child, but it's hard for us to understand how a child can love more than the two or one parent set. And it's possible. The heart grows, and the adoptee needs to know that they went from loving arms to loving arms. And the adoptive family needs to have access to social and medical history. And so continuing on with that relationship is not just good for the adoptee and not confusing when it's explained to a child in childlike terms. And it's also healthy and best practice for the biological family because they can see that their child is safe and loved and doing well. So some of the other things that we're going to talk about just really quick as far as clients inside of our rooms, inside of our client advocate rooms. So communication, the way that the brain reads communication is only 7% what we say. The rest of it, like tone of voice, very, very important. Also our body language and our facial expressions, that's all encompassing in communication. So we need to be careful that we're not leaning away from or folding our arms or appearing closed off in any way. We want to lean forward and be open with our arms to engage with the clients and show them that we care about them. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So showing that with our body language, and when they say difficult things to hear, not reacting on our faces and not reacting by pulling away or crossing our arms to show disapproval or disengaging. Something else here, Dr. Segal talks about flipping your lid. So the little diagram that we have here is showing the hand as a brain visual. So this part would be this part here. The brain is prefrontal cortex, this front part. That in layman's terms is the adulty part of the brain. So planning, reasoning, that kind of stuff. In here, the thumb area would be the limbic system, the amygdala, the hippocampus. So everything that's in charge of fight, flight, freeze, fun. We've heard of that. So when a trigger comes in, something difficult is happening. Sometimes what can happen is our logical brain essentially goes offline or flips up, and then we're running on our emotional brain. So we need to understand that when our clients come in, some of them are going to have flipped lids. And so being able to talk about their options is not necessarily something that they can super duper do. So we need to start off with getting their lids back down. What I mean by that is rather than talking with clients about each option in detail, kind of take their lead and find out, do they have housing insecurities? Do they have food insecurities? Because somebody who's living on the streets and starving isn't really going to be able to make future plans for a child that's not earthside yet when they are so encompassed by all of this trauma and chaos that they're in here and now. So helping these moms and dads, if they're involved, to get the resources that they need before they're able to be really equipped with knowledge is so important. And also understanding from this point of view that fight, flight, freeze, or fawn is going to be up. Therefore, they're going to be assessing their environment. Back when I placed for adoption, I like to use the term trauma lenses. So when I was working with an adoption assessor or anyone new around me, I was scanning my environment and scanning them to see if they're going to show me anything that indicates that they're not safe and that I should not trust them. People in trauma are hyper aware of body language, of tone of voice, of facial expressions, because all of those indicate safety or unsafety. So it's just so important that we are aware of the space that we are taking up, and what we're communicating with our body, our faces, and our voices. So verbal and nonverbal communication. We want to make sure that we're empowering clients with information and not advising our clients. The difference here is we are purely giving knowledge and equipping our clients with resources based on what they are saying they need and want. And so we shouldn't be using, as I'm using it with you, we shouldn't be using the word should or shouldn't, because those words can be very judgmental. We want to make sure that we are giving our clients knowledge, but not condemning them when they don't take that or they haven't previously taken the healthiest route that we see. So if we have a client who doesn't have a job and has filled out a bunch of application forms, but just hasn't turned them in because they are depressed and they can't get themselves up out of bed to take those applications to the place of job or where they're looking to be hired. We don't need to be saying, oh, you should go do that. We should say things more along the lines, as I'm using should, along the lines of, well, let's get you some help with that. What do you think would help you to feel better? You can give them counseling resources or give them support resources. Maybe there's some resume tools out there. They just don't feel like their resume is good enough. And so they're having poor self-esteem, which is impacting them to be able to go to turn these applications in. There could be a whole slew of things. Not at all that I'm telling you to counsel these women, because that's not your job. That would not be ethical for you to take on the role of a counselor when you're not, but it is your role as a client advocate to advocate for them. What they're expressing they need, or what they're expressing they lack but want to have. And I know I'm talking really fast. We just have a lot of information here to go over, and I want to be intentional to not take up a whole ton of your time. So while we are going over a lot of information here, you will have access to the slides to be able to go back and look through them. So this link is just a brief overview of all of this. If you guys want to go more in depth, as I said, there is a longer training video that does slow this down and does go more in depth into all of this. I just want to accommodate your meeting times and the capacity for how much your staff and volunteers can handle to kind of chew over in one sitting. So adoption, making an alternative parenting plan. Some parents who come into pregnancy centers already have this cultural bias surrounding adoption. So when we use language that's a little bit different, but still communicates the whole truth of it, that helps them to see beyond the cultural bias and be able to hear possibly the knowledge, the truth on that subject. So making an alternative parenting plan of adoption. So it's not giving a child up, it is making an alternative parenting plan. And that has been helpful in some pregnancy centers that I've worked with. So just to give you another option for talking with clients. And then open adoption. We talked a little bit previously about how a lot of clients think that adoption and foster care are the same thing. They're not. And so understanding that in private infant adoption, the biological mom or parents can choose what family they want to place their child with, and they can also choose a family that is fully on board with open adoption. And there's some laws around that. which I won't go super in depth into. All of that would be in the longer video. But just to peruse the top of that topic, in the state of Ohio and most states in America, openness is a gentleman's agreement, meaning that it is a relationship and not a legality. So it's so important to find ethical agencies that are training hopeful adoptive parents how to have healthy and lifelong open adoptions. If they're not training these families on that, it's going to be up to these families to get that information on their own, and we need to be intentional. By we, I mean all agencies across the board, adoption-wise, need to be intentional to be training hopeful adoptive parents on the importance of open adoption. So again, our language matters. Just to give you an example here, a lot of the culture says giving a baby up for adoption. So historically, that comes from the orphan trains, where children used to be given up onto a train, and that train would go across the Midwest to where farmers and other people would essentially adopt these children off the trains. It's not based in empathy or a really good practice that America once held. So just being intentional with how we as pregnancy center and adoption agency representatives speak with clients. Now, I'm not telling you to police the language of somebody who has experienced adoption themselves. So the adoption triad is a triangle here. It has the adoptive parents, the birth parents or biological parents, and the adoptee at the top. So anybody in the adoption triad, if they're using, I gave my baby up for adoption, biological families doing that who's already placed for adoption, we don't need to police their language. And even when clients are coming in and using that language, we don't need to police them. We want to be intentional to live not by the finger with others, but by the heart. So using language that is based in empathy while based in fact. So placing a child for adoption, making an alternative parenting plan of adoption. Our language matters. So I won't go into all of this because, again, I'm trying to be empathetic to your time. I will touch on one more thing, though. So birth parents, some clients that come into pregnancy centers are very off-put by that title. Excuse me. And so some of the other titles that can be given to families who have placed a child for adoption is first parent, first mom, first dad, natural mom, natural dad, biological mom, biological dad, and mom and dad are all perfectly fine titles. Mom and dad are preferred, though, to give to somebody who has placed a child for adoption. If someone has not placed a child for adoption, they're either mom, dad, biological dad, or expectant mom, expectant dad. To place the title of birth mom or first mom indicates that that mom has placed a child, or that dad has placed a child for adoption, which could be viewed as coercion. And we don't want to make anyone feel pressured into placing a child for adoption. Laws and policy. I'm not going to go over all of this, just going to give you some of the basics so that if somebody has questions, you feel confident in sharing this information. And again, please feel free to go through the slides that have all of these links on here if you want to learn a little bit more in depth. Or you could always pause this video and read through here to give you a bit more information. But some of the big hitters here that's good to know is reaching out to an adoption agency while you're pregnant is not a end-all be-all. You have to place for adoption. So any of the paperwork that an adoption assessor would do with one of your clients is not an official adoption to where the client is placing their child for adoption. That can only happen 72 hours after birth or 72 hours after birth and the social and medical history and laws and materials have been done, which are 2 state paperwork. The biological families, or excuse me, biological moms, this one does not apply to dad. So even if he's involved, it doesn't apply to him. Biological moms who are making an adoption plan and who have chosen a hopeful adoptive family to parent their child while they're pregnant, and then 60 days after birth, if they've placed, they have access to $3,000 of living expenses. The law is very intentional about what living expenses mean. So they can't, not that I think that they would, or not that I'm holding any sort of stereotype. It's just the state requires all adoption agencies to have receipts of what everything was spent on, so that we're proving that no drugs, no alcohol, and by drugs I mean cigarettes, like that kind of stuff, was bought from the grocery store, and it was all food or toiletries or cleaning supplies, a cell phone to be able to call the doctor, a car to be able to get to doctor's appointments, rent, mortgage payments, that sort of thing, utilities, all of that can go towards qualifying for living expenses. And then here on this page, I have a few different ways for you to look into other agencies. From my understanding, pregnancy centers, and that I could be totally off, it might not be across the board on this, and just a few of the pregnancy centers that I've worked with, but they have to have a couple of different resources, adoption agency wise, to be able to give to clients. And so this is just some questions to be able to ask other agencies to help you feel confident in your choice of who you send clients to. Because ultimately, we want to send people to adoption agencies that care about them. That's not going to coerce them into placing their child for adoption, and is going to rejoice when that mama, or if dad's involved, those parents decide to parent, and then help them access resources therein, or they're going to support that family in making that adoption plan if that is what they ultimately decide, and they being mom and dad decide to do. So just some red flags to look out for, and then some questions to ask agencies. I'm just going to go over the first one here to kind of tell you where I'm coming from. So state you are interested in the adoption, or in adopting through the agency. I am not advocating that you lie. I am not advocating that you state you are anybody that is not who you are. I'm just stating that if you call in and say, hi, I'm with the pregnancy center, I want to ask some questions, you might get, Spirit of Faith is going to tell you the same thing across the board, but I can't speak for other agencies, and I'm not trying to speak ill of other agencies. I just want you to be equipped with the tools to be able to get full and correct information here. So if you called into other agencies and said, hey, I am the pregnancy center, I want to have information on adoption, you could get different information from that adoption agency than if you said, I'm interested in adoption through your agency. That doesn't state who you are. It doesn't state that you're with an organization, and it might get you their more authentic answers. Now, I'm not trying to make it seem like other adoption agencies are malicious or are out to target moms. I'm not trying to communicate that at all. I just want to give you the tools to access the information that you're looking for. So I'll just go through one of these so that it can make a bit more sense. So I'm not coming off as condescending or belittling other agencies here, because that's not what I mean at all. So some of the examples of red flags was, does the agency promise an adoption to occur within a certain amount of time? So if you call in and say, hey, I'm interested in adoption through your agency, how many adoptions do you have in a year? Or how long would I have to wait until I get to adopt a child. If they're saying, oh, we promise to have a child in your home in 6 months, that could be an indication that they're coercing moms in order to make that 6-month mark. So making women feel like they have to place for adoption, either by super praising them for, oh, this is a wonderful self-sacrificing thing you're doing. You're a wonderful mom for placing for adoption, which there's space for validation, but we also need to make sure that we're not over validating in order to make a mom feel like I have to place or I'm a bad mom. And then on the flip side of that, we want to make sure that the agencies we're aligning with aren't making women feel like terrible moms if they choose to parent, and not empowering them no matter their choice. So just that's something to be wary of. An ethical agency would not guarantee any sort of timeline because we can't. It's all based on biological mom or dad's choice. And we don't have control over other people's choices. And ethical agencies are going to first and foremost help biological families parent before they help them make that adoption plan. Now some role playing for you guys, just to get you started here. Some of the things that I have heard in the past from pregnancy centers are beginning off with closed-ended questions. So closed-ended questions are questions that are going to get you a yes or a no. So it's the peas on the plate, not the meat and the potatoes that we're looking for here. So have you ever considered adoption? That's not going to get you a whole lot of information. And more than likely, it's going to get you the I could never give my baby up. Yeah. Or I'd rather abort than give my baby up. We want to ask open-ended questions. So an example of an open-ended question would be, tell me what you know about adoption. That might get you some more information of what they know, or it could spit out more of the, oh, I could never. But there's some more tools here for you. On the client section here, that I could never give my baby up. Here, you can talk about, will you talk to me more about why you feel that way? Do you maybe have a personal or family experience on adoption or foster care? And that would kind of open the door to be able to talk about what adoption is and what it not is. It's not foster care. So some of the things that I have also seen in pregnancy centers before is when there's any sort of pushback, there's no loving pushback again. And I'm not telling you to fight your clients at all. I'm just saying when they say, I could never give my baby up, that's not the time to say, okay, let's talk more about parenting. That's the time to empathetically lean in and say something to the extent of, I hear your heart and your concern. My role is to equip you with knowledge so you can make your best choice. And then, so here we're showing this client, I care about you. I hear you. And then giving knowledge. Open adoption allows you to stay connected with your child as he or she grows. And if that's not appropriate to what your client was saying before, another rebuttal, if you will, that's not the right word I'm wanting here because that sounds more argumentative, but for lack of a better word at the moment, the rebuttal that you could give was many moms who I speak with have never been told that foster care and adoption are not the same thing. And then open adoption allows you to stay connected with your child as he or she grows. So there's a lot more information in here, which I would be happy to speak to in the other video if you would like to do that one, to give you a little bit more language to speak with clients on. But overall, this this is the main roadblock that I'm finding, is clients are giving pushback, and then the advocate, which I've been in your shoes, doesn't feel equipped to share truth, doesn't feel equipped to share more knowledge. And so that conversation on adoption is totally pivoted away from, and then parenting is talked about. Which in some cases that could be appropriate, but more often than not, it's a let's slow down here and make sure that you are totally equipped with all the knowledge. And in all of this, to say, the goal is not to get more clients to choose adoption. It's not the goal at all. And the goal is to listen, empathize, validate, and equip them with knowledge. I have one pregnancy center that says they're more pro-choice than pro-choice people are, because they share all the options, not just abortion and not just parenting, but they talk about adoption so that all of these women can be fully equipped, which I really appreciated that. I thought that was cool. All right, and I won't be playing this. You guys can come back through on the slides and play this if you would like. But this is Mission Increase, which is an amazing organization. They have created a video with Spirit of Faith Adoptions to help pregnancy centers talk with clients. And this is something that you could show to your clients if you wanted to kind of help open up that conversation. And then a referral form for clients. So anytime you have a client that's wanting to speak with Spirit of Faith Adoptions, just hop on over to this link. It's also in my email from where I'm sending all this information from, the videos from. It's at the bottom of my email. And if you don't have a release of information on the client, then you would just fill in the information with the asterisk on it. So if you don't have a release of information, I can't know your client's last name. I can't know intimate details about your client's case. I can just know your client's name. I can know where the client is being referred from, and I can know how to contact you in order to be able to speak with your client. But all of that is in here. Just the little red asterisk is on the ones that you would fill out if you don't have that release. And that would be all for us today. So let me stop the sharing. All righty. I know that was super quick. It was a really brief overview. But as I said, there's another video that I'm sending along that does have more information in there, and it's a bit more slowed down so that you can get more in-depth information on that. So thank you so much. Hope you guys have a great training the rest of your day.